What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we'll be discussing electional astrology as well as taking a deeper look at energy dynamics and how they affect people, places, and things. So, let's get into it. I remember when I first got into astrology, I kept seeing this quote by J.P. Morgan. Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And for a long time, I didn't really pay it any mind until one day, I got curious. And when I did, I realized that it was basically referring to the fact that a lot of businessmen, including JP Morgan, who's connected to the banks and specifically Chase, use astrology or keep an astrologer on payroll to advise them on when to make moves, thus strengthening their investments through timing, okay? So in a nutshell, electional astrology is doing just that, using astrology for the timing of events. And this can be for a number of things, starting a business all the way to having a personal event. So let's start there. And I will add too that once I finally looked into this quote and I embarked on this at my time, this led me into understanding transits and, better at that time. Okay. So let's start with the example of like having an event. So when you're looking at electional astrology, you want to pick the best day to have your event based on the alignment of the planets, because as we know, the planets influence human behavior. So one of the most important, the first place you want to start is with the moon. Now, we all know that the moon goes through a distinct cycle every month where it waxes, which is increasing power, and then it wanes, which is decreasing power. What you'll find is that whether it be for an event or for business, the most successful time to do something of this nature is when the moon is waxing, when it is increasing in power. And just through my scope, I've seen that when events occur on a full moon, it is truly like a culmination point. That is when the moon is most powerful. So if you're having a party and it happens to fall on the full moon, this is going to be the party of your life. And let me tell you, I've been to some weddings, a wedding, and some parties that have occurred on full moons. And the energy is through the roof. None of them were whack. None of them flopped. They all came out as desired. Okay? So it's the first thing you want to know. Working with the moon cycle. Now, I don't want to say this is the only time in which you can have success is when the moon is waxing. There may be other people who say that, but I'm reluctant to say it because I'm also a believer in the time, the cycle in which the moon cycle in which, or moon phase in which you were born under. And I think for some people, it's just going to work out that way, that certain things end up when the moon is waning, possibly because you were born at that time. So you're more in rhythm with that cycle. And also notice this as well for people who have natal retrograde planets. People who are born with natal retrograde energy, when that planet is retrograde, they don't feel as disoriented as everyone else because this is their natural energy. So with this thing, my biggest thing is just like experiment. Don't just take my word for it, anybody else's. You go back and see the results within your own life. And I'll give some examples of, how I've seen it play out within my life as well. Okay. So you want to look at the moon. You want to check the moon cycle. Okay. And things just tend to have a little bit more power to it when the moon is waxing and heading towards that full moon, right? Then you really want to look at the day of the week and the day of the week as well as the type of event and correlate that to when you want to have it. So for example, Venus is correlated with the day Friday. So if you were having something, an event that is relationship oriented, one of the best days to have that would be a Friday. So looking at the day of the week, and then you want to also look at where the planets are. Okay. If Venus is transiting Scorpio, this would correlate perfectly to have an event based on relationships and couples that cover sex and intimacy or some type of occult thing, right? If it is an event correlated towards children, you may want to look for times when certain planets are transiting Leo. So in order to do this well, you're really going to have to learn your correspondences and keywords, which anybody who I work with personally, and they're like, how'd you get so good? I started to see astrology for what it was, like as things within the environment, right? Athletes, to me, athletes are Aries energy or Martian energy. Teachers are Sagittarius or Gemini energy. Entertainers could take on a lot of different forms depending on the type of entertainer it is, right? So you want to align your event or your business with the time period of where the correspondences of where the planets are transiting. Okay. So going back to the moon is rather important also because it's everyone's emotions. It's how everyone's going to be feeling that day. Right. So if it was an event where everyone was like needed to hear each other out and kind of have like a heart to heart, we wouldn't want to do this when the moon is squaring Mars. People will be combative that day. Okay. Now, at the same time, we don't want to disregard harsh aspects, but rather just correlate it to the type of event. Because at the same time, maybe Moon or Mercury squaring Mars would be essential or really auspicious for a debate, right? Or something where you need to get your point across with a little force or aggression. So it's actually like a really, really fun part of putting things together. Now, when it is based in events, you can look a lot towards just what transits are occurring, right? But depending on the type of success you want to have from this, you will also want to look at how it corresponds to your natal energy as well as your progressions. This is where we more so look into, we use this for businesses a lot, right? Something binding, a business, a marriage, something where it's like, okay, I'm in this for the long haul. I really want myself to benefit from this, Okay. Whereas opposed to if you just want like people, like women or children to benefit from it, you really pinpoint that planet that corresponds to that, or the energy that corresponds to that. Make sense? So if you're starting a business, first and foremost, what represents business? I would definitely say anything within the realm of Earth. Okay. So you definitely, regardless of where it is in your chart, you're going to want to have Capricorn energy present, possibly some Taurus, but definitely Capricorn. Okay. And then you want to look towards your business houses within your own chart. Okay. If this is a real deep financial endeavor that you're hoping to gain from, or something involving others in the exchange of money and working together, second and eighth house in your chart should really have some good things going on, right? Then we look at the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is good luck. So if you have Jupiter going through your second house at the time of launching your business, and then you do it like on a Jupiter day, you know that Jupiter has his hands all within this. And then from there are other planets that you look into. I don't want to go too much with this. I want you guys to go ahead and explore for yourselves, right? So we know if it is something to do with Jupiter, like I said before, you want to make sure you play up to Jupiter. Or if it's something where it's like it's Jupiter and Saturn, you might pick a day where Jupiter is auspicious in your chart and do it on a Saturn day, right? You know more than anybody what this represents for you. And this really helps you get into the symbology of the planets, okay? So with this, before I move on, I just want to say that progressions really do matter with this too, because your progressions are your natural evolution. Okay. So if you're a progressed Capricorn, it's only natural that you're going to be in a period in time where you want to start a business and things of that nature. Now it's just kind of seeing like, okay, where is my progressed Capricorn energy getting some play? Is the transitant moon trining this progressed Capricorn energy? And like I said, keep in mind the correspondences, okay? Now I want to kind of switch gears. So that's a bit about electional astrology, and you can explore this further, all right? And it really just helps with planning things and knowing like what is a good time for this and what is not a good time for this. You can even plan your romantic dates, like, okay, the moon is in Gemini or Venus is transiting Gemini. Me and my partner should go to a museum so we connect and grow more. Stuff like that, right? Little stuff, just all around, just playing up towards the energy. But what I really want to touch on, and it's kind of how I arrived at deciding to do this video, is that I was just looking. I told you guys before, I love sports. I'm very tuned in with that world. And I'm sure many of you have heard that the Los Angeles Clippers, they've blown a huge lead, and they kind of had an end to a very disappointing end to what was supposed to be a promising season. Now, there's a history that's going on with this franchise that they weren't very good for long. And then they got a new owner, and, he added a different type of energy, but they still seem to be those same Clippers. And this just triggered in my mind the idea that, like, okay, he bought this team from someone else. On that day, yeah, there was, a contract signed and things changed. But the overall energy of the team is still the same. It's the same name. It's in the same city, right? So what you got to know is that the previous owner had a particular stigma or energy that he's left imprinted on this franchise. And I believe that if the Clippers really want to be successful, they really are going to have to change a lot of things, like the name, possibly the location where they are going to build a new stadium. All of this can help. So how does this apply to people, right? Us. The same is said, the same thing goes on. For anybody out there who's ever had the opportunity to have a brand new car and a used car, think about it. Which one gave you more trouble? And it is through my experience that I realized that, like, when something is new, when it is yours, you have the ability to imprint your own energy on it, particularly like a car. Because I'm just a firm believer that how you treat your car is how it's going to operate. So if you're careful with your car and you take it easy, your car will take care of you. Okay. But if you're, neglecting it and running it into the ground, those results are going to come about. So if you buy a car from someone, that old owner's energy is still imprinted on it. Okay. So what you really want to do is be mindful of energy. And another example I can use is, like, say you're with a person, you both, a partner, and you both got an apartment together and you're together for years and you guys break up. Whatever themes that existed within that relationship are going to linger within that household. So if it was a very argumentative atmosphere, it doesn't matter who you go ahead and get with next. It's still going to have an aura of argumentative energy there. And all of this goes back to the electional part of when you moved in and all of that, the energy in which you're under. So now I want to go ahead and use myself as an example with certain things that I've seen. This goes back to the early part. So I was born under the waxing part, when the moon was emerging and growing. Okay, I was born under that part, and I remember when I was looking for my first place, time just kept going, and I kind of was trying to use astrology and things of that nature. And, there was an opportunity for me to get an apartment. And then I saw that it was in a waning phase. And I was like, nah, I don't think this is going to be good, right? But then when I looked back at it, I didn't even realize that although it was in a waning phase, it still made an aspect towards my fourth house that was indeed favorable. Okay? So nonetheless, the next chance that I get to get a place, it's like the same aspect occurred, same waning phase, just like different energy. That's when I'm like, oh, okay, there's something here. So now with this place that I had particularly lived at, I signed it under some really good energy. It was under a Libra moon, right? Which is my second house, which showed that this place is going to be of value to me. And while I was there, I felt very, very balanced. And I believe that it was during Leo season, which is my 12th house, right? Which could look scary as well, because like, damn, this is losses. But what happened is that this particular place, it allowed me to get even more spiritually in tune. There's another element here that you can look at. This is like a side note of just like where you live and the address and the numerology of that address. If you really look at these things, they all play a part in the energy that you feel. So anyway, fast forward, then I decided to move. Now, mind you, when I moved, I didn't even need to move. It was during Jupiter in Sag, and I was like, you know what? I got luck on my side. Let me look for a place and see what I get. So anyway, I'm looking, and when I found something, it just so happened that Mercury was in retrograde, right? And me being me, I'm like, I know Mercury's in retrograde, and technically I shouldn't sign, but fuck it. I'm gonna take a chance. So anyway, I moved to this new spot. And don't get me wrong, things are good. Things are good within the spot. But I have seen that, so during Mercury retrograde, certain things and qualities don't function to their optimum energy, right? The energy that I have within this house is good, but I will say the level of focus I have for Mercurian things is not as good in this house as it was at the previous. So put it like this. I would get more work done outside the house than I do within the house. And I believe that's part of the influence of me signing it during a Mercury retrograde. Not that a lot of things go wrong, but there are little hiccups and things that happen from time to time that I'm like, okay, that's crazy. Like, for example, here, during a particular Mercury retrograde, I parked on the street and someone actually knocked off my mirror. You know, just little weird things that happen. So I say all that to say this. When you use astrology and you really look at it in a detailed way, you see the influence of it at all levels of your life. And that energy, everything is energy. So the time in which you move into a place, you're going to be under that energy. The time in which you get married or start a relationship under that energy is going to influence it. And all in all, if you're a person that's lived with someone and broke up with them, me being me, I think you should move. Or lived in a home with like a parent or someone and that person passes away, I don't think you should remain within that space, as it is just this lingering energy and you need to rejuvenate and restart, all right? And put yourself under a new energy. But then again, if it's good energy, then yeah, you know what I'm saying? So this is my rant. I hope all of this made sense. Feel free to chime in. Let me know what you think. Share any experiences. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, you could do so now. Until next time, peace.